Hi, the poem I got was Edge by Sylvia Plath. So, Edge was Plath's last poem. She wrote it mere days before she died, and basically, it could be considered to be a bit of a suicide note for her. So, it is a free verse poem, and it has 10 two-line stanzas. So, when I first heard the title Edge, I thought that it meant that she was at the edge or the end of her life. But it basically means that she's just going over the edge because life is just driving her mad, it's driving her crazy. She's having all these issues that she's been dealing with for 20 years now. In the first stanza, it talks about how the woman is perfected, which basically means that death is a beautiful thing that needs to be perfected. Like, I first thought that it meant that she was perfect, but really it's just death is perfect to Sylvia because she spent so much time, preparing for this, so to speak, and she tried to kill herself twice already before the third time that ended up being the charm, pretty much. Her dead body wears a smile of accomplishment. The illusion of Greek necessity flows in the scrolls of her toga. So, I thought that where it says her dead body wears a smile of accomplishment, I thought that she felt as though she accomplished something by dying, since she always thought of it as a good thing instead of sad. But it basically means that she just got rid of the depressing things in her life and is happy to move on and is trying to get to this next stage. The illusion of a Greek necessity flows in the scrolls of her toga. The Greek necessity basically means that she achieved death, since, like I've already stated, she thought of death as being somewhat of an achievement. Her bare feet seem to be saying, "We have come so far, it is over." So, basically, I thought that it meant that she went a long way before dying, because she's come through a long way in her life. She's done so much. She was actually highly accomplished. But it basically means that she just can't walk in life anymore with what she's dealing with. She's been dealing with depression for 22 years, and she's just done with it. And things are just finally over for her. She's done with life. It's over. She doesn't have to do this anymore, and she refuses to go on with this. Each dead child coiled a white serpent. So, I thought that it meant that she was the dead child, but the dead child could be the miscarriages that she's had, because she had a couple of those, or at least one of those. And the white serpent could be her umbilical cord. And then this line as a whole, each dead child coiled a white serpent, could be dealing with like purity and innocence of the children, but also she wanted to kill her children along with herself. So I'm assuming that it means so that she wouldn't be without her mother, or they wouldn't be without their mother. And she didn't want to be without her children, but she could not walk on this earth anymore. One at each little pitcher of milk, now empty. The milk is her luck. She's out of luck. She has nothing left. And so basically, this pitcher of milk that she has, or all this luck, it's just gone. It's drained completely from her. And I guess she probably considers a lot of her accomplishments to have been sheer luck. She has folded them back into her body as petals of a golden rose close when the garden stiffens and odors bleed from the sweet deep throats of the night flower. When it talks about her, she has folded, it means that she's comparing birth to death and saying that it's natural, which basically it is natural because everybody's born, everybody lives, everybody dies. It is the circle of life. When she says that she's folded them back into her body as petals, the them that she's talking about would be her children. And then, at first, I thought this whole line, or these whole two stanzas, were basically her stiffening as she decays. But it's not at all what I thought. The odors that are bleeding is all this knowledge and all these things that she was too scared to say anything about. She was a very intelligent woman, but she just didn't want to say all of these things that she could have in her life. And so these odors are just bleeding from her. From sweet, deep throats of the night flower. So that's basically everything she needs is dried up and gone. Ted's left her, so she doesn't need him anymore. She's planning on killing her children along with herself, so they don't need her, she doesn't need them, even if it doesn't actually work out that way. Then she probably doesn't think that her mom needs her anymore, since they had a very bad relationship. And obviously her dad doesn't need her since he died when she was 8. So, the moon has nothing to be sad about. In other poems, she's talked about the moon being her mom. It's basically what she's associated those two as being. And so I thought that it meant that her mom should be happy, because this is something that Sylvia's wanted literally her whole life. And so I thought that it meant that her mom should just be happy for her, because Sylvia can go and she can be happy and be put out of her misery. So, staring from her hood of bone. That basically means that her mom doesn't care since they weren't close. They didn't have a good relationship, so her mom probably wouldn't even care to see her gone. It would just make her life a whole lot easier. She is used to this sort of thing. I thought that it meant that it happens all the time since Sylvia was constantly trying to kill herself. But basically it just meant that she's used to death because of her husband dying and then now her daughter being about to die. And she should be used to Sylvia being sad and depressed and suicidal, because this is how she's always been. This is her. Her blacks crackle and drag. Basically means that she's grown old and sad. She's been putting up with Sylvia's depression for 20 years and it is aching. I mean, no matter how close you are or how far apart you and your mother are, that's not something that any mother wants to see their child go through. And she's had to see this for 2 decades. It's got to be hard. And she's old now, and she's sad for things that are going on in her life. So basically the tone of this poem is depressed and melancholic. The shifts, I noticed that the first and the last line of the poem contradict each other. In the first line of the poem, she's talking about how the woman is perfected, but in the last line, she's talking about how the woman's grown old and sad. So this poem could be talking about a long period of time that they've gone through since she was perfect at the start but old and sad at the end. And it goes from women to children because it talks about the woman at the beginning, then talks about the children in the middle, then goes back to talking from children back to woman. And the theme of this poem is death. She talks about death throughout pretty much the whole thing, talks about how death is an accomplishment. She's achieved death. And how it needs to be a perfect thing. So, that's pretty much it. Thank you.